every week, composers reach out to me to submit some music for feedback, and time again, I see the same issue coming up, and that is transitions. Composers are actually really good at making ideas and building those ideas up, but when it comes to switching between ideas, they really struggle. It's tough to make transitions not feel blocky or choppy or abrupt, but thankfully, they're actually really easy to fix after the fact if you know 3 basic principles. In this video, I'll share these 3 tips along with musical examples so you can follow along. And if you're interested in more regular tips and tricks as a composer, be sure to check out my newsletter, which I've just launched. It's starting on Tuesday, and I'm gonna send weekly tips for composers looking to improve their craft. So here's the example we're gonna work with for all 3 of these tips. You can already see that there's differences between the 2 ideas. We have one idea that's kind of short and percussive, and then one that's a little bit more expansive, open, and flowing. Let's take a listen and just note the different instruments and sections as it goes. Now, if you want access to the MIDI of this is available on Patreon, where I've actually done the entire composing process, but for now, we'll just talk about it as it is. So first things first, you'll notice the beginning is a clarinet solo with a muted trumpet, accompanied by some woodwinds, some pizzicato strings, and some harp. In the second section, it's much more string dominant. We also have some choir accompanying with oohs, and we have some winds on the top accompanying the melody. So there's differences, right? So the first thing you want to do is you actually want to figure out what makes them different from each other and blend those ideas together as you get closer to the transition. You can think of it like a Venn diagram. So you have one idea, another idea, and then right in the middle is where you start to bleed them together, like the epicenter of your transition. If we take a look at this again, we have lots of different things we can blend, and we're gonna do this in real time so you can see. We have pizzicato, right? So we could already make this feel more glued together if we continue that pizzicato going through underneath. So here's what it would sound like if the pizzicato actually carried through the next section. Already a little bit more glued together. We also had harp and celeste that was active in the first section, but it's not active in the second section. So let's keep that harp going through to keep the arpeggiation. And let's also kind of keep more of that arpeggiation because we've lost it by having the celeste do some arpeggios as well. So this is getting there. It's sounding a little bit better, but there's still more we could do. That's gonna lead me into my second tip, which is stagger entrances and elongate exits. Normally, when we have these transitions, things can get blocky because all of the instruments are changing all at once. So instead of doing that, let's instead introduce some of the instruments bit by bit and have some of the previous instruments stretch out a little bit past their ending. That's gonna create kind of like a crossfade essentially, and it's gonna glue that transition together a little bit longer. If we listen to this spot here, all the instruments come in on beat 4. So instead, let's have some instruments start a little bit earlier. So now we have viola coming in right in the second half of this phrase. We have violin 2 staggered a little bit later, and we have violin 1 staggered the latest. So you can see right here how they start to ease in gradually, like this. This is already a lot better. I want to have a little bit of a run to kind of accentuate that movement up. Yeah, that's really nice. See, it kind of sets it up, it propels it forward. Let's do the same with the flute. I think that would be really nice, and have the flute come in even just a little bit later. Let's have the flute come in here. Da-da-da-da-da-dum. So it's coming in even later than violin. So that is the anticipation part. That's where we have the instruments coming in a little earlier. Now let's work on the elongation where the instruments before are kind of held a little bit afterwards. So we had trumpet and clarinet that have pretty much become inactive, as well as bassoon. So let's work on the clarinet first. So instead of a short note, let's do this. Downbeat. And then drop it off. So see, it actually dies off. We don't need the trumpet, that's gonna be a bit too aggressive, but we could actually add the bassoon. So instead of these short notes here, which are playing, let's have it actually move to long notes to start to set up the new section. So see if we listen to the winds now on their own. So there you go. Already you have a lot more transition in between the two elements. We could also add triangle afterwards if we wanted to, just to have a little bit of an accent near the end. And there you go. Now you already have the ideas kind of stretching, and it's not so much of a block now as it is a big kind of shift. There is one more major thing that we could do, and this is my third tip, which is to use percussion to introduce the frequencies to come. The percussion section has just as much of a pitch range as the pitched instruments. So we have bass drum for the low end, timpani getting a little bit higher, snare drum in the mid register, triangles for the upper register, cymbals for the high register, mark tree for super high registers. So we have all these instruments at our disposal, and we can use them kind of to anticipate different frequencies coming in. So to give you an example, if we have these flutes here that are coming in the higher register, we are going to want to anticipate that with something in the percussion that can sort of set us up. And that's going to be something high, like a suspended cymbal or a mark tree. So here's a suspended cymbal to anticipate that. And to add mark tree to that, because that'll be fun. Now, to demonstrate why it wouldn't work if we use something in the low register, you'll see that there's going to be a disconnect between the percussion and the actual instruments coming up. So if we did something low, like a grand casa, that's a bass drum, it's going to feel unwarranted. Just doesn't need to be there. Even a timpani is going to be a little excessive because this is a light flowing section. But if you wanted to, just to demo it out, you could have something kind of more of subtle timpani roll. I would do something like that and then have a little boom at the end. You could potentially, if you wanted to, have a bit of a low boom just to set up at the very end. But you'll see that that helps to bridge the two sections together. So as you can see, these are pretty quick fixes. It's just a matter of blending your ideas together, making sure you're anticipating the entrances, elongating the exits, and using percussion to aid those transition elements. So if you found this helpful and interesting, please do leave a like and subscribe. It really helps me out. I'm loving all the support from the channel. It really means a lot to me. And be sure to check out that newsletter if you want more tips and resources as a composer. I think you'll find that very helpful. Thanks. See you in the next video.